this new administration under President Bola Tinubu and some of the promises that have been made in that inauguration speech, looking at things like the economy, security, the creation of jobs. And while we've heard from the good governance advocates and policy analysts, we want to hear directly from Nigerians. How have they felt in the past 1 week? How has the fuel subsidy removal affected them? And is there a sense of renewed hope which this administration came in promising? To further the conversation, I have with me a journalist in the person of Ifeanyi Okoye. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you very much.
And joining us virtually via Zoom, I have a media personality and reality star, Adekunle Olopade. Welcome to Rubbin Minds. Adekunle, can you hear me?
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we'll move straight into the conversation. I believe that there was that promise of renewed hope. Are you hopeful in this past 6 days? Do you feel that this government has already begun to deliver on that mandate of renewed hope?
It's too early to pass any verdict on the administration, so we should just watch the policies, whether they match their word with action. Like the president told us, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that is going to take off subsidy, which we saw from the very first day. But the mode at which the subsidy left, it calls for more questioning, looking at the majority of the populace who are the victims of the subsidy removal. If you factor in more than 500% increment of the previous price of the pump price for PMS compared to what it is now, you find out that a lot of people are under agony. People are going through a lot because there was no palliative initially. And the government are telling us that this subsidy has to go, that it was never captured in the supplementary budget for 2023.
As a journalist, how have you fared in the past 6 days in terms of getting around, moving about across the country to get your stories, to file your reports in? How has it affected you personally as well as in your work?
Actually, it has not been, mobility has not been an issue, but you find out that the PMS increment has affected virtually the cost of goods and services gradually, which we see in our day-to-day lifestyle. And by so doing, it has affected people's disposable income. You find out that a lot of the people, Nigerians at the bottom of the pyramid, are people who earn little. And by the increment, people's salaries, income, whether you are doing business, whether they are in the private or informal sector, is being threatened. And these are some of the challenges the masses have been crying out. They will have been palliative, like maybe cushioning the effect of the subsidy removal, because globally, all over the world, even in the US, there is still subsidy for petroleum. Even they subsidize even staple food like bread in some countries.
So we'll come back to that aspect of cushioning the effect of the removal of subsidy. But I would like for our guest joining us virtually, Adekunle Olopade. Are you there now?
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I would like to know how it has been for you in the past 1 week of this new administration. How have you been personally affected by, say, the removal of fuel subsidy?
For lack of a better word, I'd say it was something I anticipated. So on the 28th of May, I went to the filling station and I stocked up on petrol because if memory serves me correct, we've had the issue of fuel scarcity for almost a year now. I remember early last year, just before we went into the Big Brother house, there was fuel scarcity. We came out of the house, there's still fuel scarcity. And now there's a new administration, and it's not as though that there's scarcity, but then the access to petrol is completely difficult. And when you think about it, well, I live on the island in Lagos, and most of the cars you see around are SUVs and Jeeps and big cars. It would pertain to people who are able to afford it regardless of the price hike. But on the flip side, there's a larger population of people who are within a lower socioeconomic class, and they rely on public transportation. At the end of the day, if you go by almost every bus stop on the island, you see the influx of people who are waiting for public transport to get home, most times at odd hours. So you can imagine when we don't have enough public transportation system, you have people who are relying on the few that we have, and those few are piled up at the filling station.
So I would like to just come in there, Adekunle. You were prepared, and I know some people were also of that opinion that there's a fuel scarcity looming, let me go fill my tank. But when your tank definitely runs out of fuel, it'll be interesting to get your views on how else you can prepare maybe your wallet this time for that increment. I'd like to move to Ifeanyi. In our earlier conversation before the break, we're looking at accountability. Now, in holding this government accountable, on the one hand, you said it's too early, but already we're seeing the effects of the removal of subsidy. And what you kept saying was, where is this cushioning effect? How can we engage government to tell us what exactly should we expect when they say they are providing some kind of palliative or some kind of cushioning effect? Are we going to see maybe subsidization of the transport fares? Is there a data bank where they can go and check who needs this palliative measures? How can we get those answers?
I think the palliative, like cushioning effect, I don't think they could get an actual statistics or data of people who need the palliative. But on the lower class, the mass population of the Nigerians are at the receiving end. The palliative they could give from a point of sincerity, if the government are willing. We've seen over time where they told us they are bringing in palliative. At the end of the day, it couldn't be justified. So we hope it will not turn out such this time around. Palliative in the sense that maybe the government could provide its rapid bus transmit, like the BRT we have in Lagos, make the fares a subsidized one for the masses.
When you say for the masses, if I have my Cowrie card here in Lagos State, how will the person know that they are giving me a subsidized fare, and if I qualify for this subsidy? Wouldn't it end up being a subsidy that covers all the people that use that form of transportation?
Well, there is no segregation when it comes to the cushioning effect.
So everybody should receive.
Everybody should receive equal measure, because in the long run, you find out that, let me say, the local commuters or maybe the Uber, their fare goes astronomically high compared to what is being expected of them before the increase. Then the government vehicles or BRT buses gives a very cheap fare, maybe a 50% slash, and that makes it reasonable.
Okay. Some would even argue that maybe we should explore other modes of transportation that do not require the fuel, and also maybe begin to look at maybe work from home policies. I would like to get your view, Adekunle, as to what you're expecting from this new administration. When they say renewed hope, how does that translate to you as a reality TV star, as someone in the media space? What does renewed hope mean to you?
Hope is a very expensive commodity, and we've gone through it in the past couple of years. I say between 8 to the last 14 years. And I personally would say I'm very skeptical. I have very little hope to give, but I know quite a number of people don't share the same mindset as I do. In terms of renewed hope, as the other speaker had said earlier on, it is too early to judge this current administration. But with the antecedent that they've set up in the first week that they've assumed office, it would let us know if this is actually a government that does care about the people, or they just want to continue what the previous administrations have done, which is to carry out laws and, make policies that only benefit them. Because if everybody's being very factual, this decision that was made very abruptly on Inauguration Day, it is affecting everybody, regardless of the tier or the arm of government that you support. And it's only if people don't want to be completely honest, they will say that this was a good idea. Yes, maybe the idea of subsidy needed to be removed, but the way with which it was done was not properly executed. In terms of renewed hope, I can say that it's too soon to tell. We should wait and see. Sadly, there's really nothing we can do. If the government decides not to go back on the decision, we are at the foot end of it and would only live to endure it as we've been doing in the last couple of years.
So just like you said that it's too early to tell, but nonetheless, I believe that accountability is something that will really drive that sense of an inclusive government. How else can President Bola Tinubu really get that uniting spirit, unify Nigerians across different political parties or affiliations to come together for the good of Nigeria? What can the president do in the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks to really show that this is an inclusive administration?
Yes, there should be sincerity of purpose. Campaigns are over. In as much as we saw the despicable act and all manner of campaign of calumny exhibited by the present party, I think it's time they should face governance from a point of being sincere and knowing that governance is a contract between the people governed and the few elected ones. So when we talk of what people expect from him, I believe in weeks to come, at least like some of the promises he made on the day of his inauguration, he talked about the power, he talked about healthcare, he talked about infrastructure, he talked about tackling corruption, he talked about the foreign exchange rate, he talked about removing the multiple foreign exchange rates, looking at taxation, and also uniting the country as one, fighting insecurity. So some of these things are what we tend to look out as day goes by. How sincere are they to pursue some of these issues? Because we don't want business as usual, what we've seen from his predecessor and him being a successor. So it's too early, but I know people are anxious. People want to see, are they really sincere of what they say? And the kind of appointment he makes again is another factor to judge if truly he wants to move from the status quo, remain same.
So the composition of his cabinet can show really his commitment to running an inclusive government. I would like you to weigh in on that, Adekunle. What will you be expecting to see in his cabinet composition? What kind of people will you believe, when you see them, will you believe that, yes, this is an inclusive government and this is a government like the president has come out to say that he's not going to rule over us. So it's more about this I would say collective leadership.
To be very honest, what I think is, I'd say within the past 1 year or past 2 years, what we have is we have more, I say a lot of younger people are now interested in Nigerian politics. A few of the appointments that we've seen are people who most are not familiar with. It will be difficult to say these are the type of people that we expect in the president's new administration because everybody would have a track record, but not everybody who is now conversant with the Nigerian political system would be conversant with their track record. In terms of transparency and fairness, I'd say the president's media team or the federal government's media team has a key role in playing. What we've been used to over the past couple of years is we have the people who work in governance always come up with excuses and lies, and they try to cushion up mistakes that they've made. If this new administration actually does own up to their mistakes and then they try to set in place measures, and to be very honest, try to be fair, I don't think government or politics or people should be run by you trying to outsmart the citizen or the people who you've said you wanted to govern. Everybody's paying attention and everybody can see. What will eventually happen if you do continue to lie is the renewed hope that was promised during the campaign and inauguration will no longer be there. And everybody will just wait for your 4 years to be over and then we just go on with business as usual.
Okay, I'll move to the issue again on representation, because we know that democracy is government by the people, of the people, for the people. Now, in a country where half of the population are women, what should this government be doing? Should they be exploring, say, affirmative action in ensuring that women hold key positions in government? And then when you're looking beyond even the issue of women, let's look at religion. We know that we have a president and vice president of the same religion. Should we be expecting maybe key positions within the National Assembly to be held by Christians? And also the issue of diversity when it comes to people living with disabilities. So I'd like you to weigh in on that when we're saying we have a representative government and a representative governance.
I think the issue of affirmative action, bringing more women in politics, is a welcome development. And I think politics of today should be all inclusive. It shouldn't be winner take it all, because there is more just to that 4 years. You should be bequeathing a legacy to the next or coming generation. So more roles should be given to women who have distinguished themselves. It shouldn't be a situation of, oh, because I'm a woman, but it should be within the woman flux, the competent hands, people who have walked their talk over time. They should be given such opportunity. That's what I mean. Looking at the issue of having a representative government as regards the issue of religion, whether the Christians should take all, like most people who always advocate, oh, the best or the most competent person should be given such position, irrespective of religion. But I disagree, because today Nigeria is going through one of the most and worst scenario that has to do with religious intolerance. And we are second globally in the world ranking as regard what is happening in the northeast and northwest.
So we cannot afford to just give it to the best people for the jobs without paying attention to the religious background.
That's not what I mean. People might.
Okay, I'd like you to hold on to that thought. We need to go on a quick break. Please join us again when Rubbin Minds returns. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. Now, before the break, we were getting the views of Nigerians who have gone through at least 6 days of a new administration under President Bola Tinubu. We've looked at the removal of fuel subsidy, but also looked at some of the promises that have been made by President Tinubu during his inauguration speech and how we can begin to hold this government accountable. Before the break, I was discussing about running a representative government where we're seeing women, people living with disabilities, people of different religions being represented in government through the composition of the cabinet and holding of key political positions. I would like you, Adekule, to weigh in on that. What should this government be doing to ensure that it's inclusive? Are we looking at, say, in terms of numbers, in percentages, how many women should we see? What kind of positions? People living with disability, how do we balance? We all know about federal charter, that not one particular ethnic group is overly represented. How do we balance the needs for representation that's inclusive, but still ensure that we have a meritocratic government?
I don't want to believe that the only people who are qualified for certain job roles or positions would only come from one geopolitical zone or one tribe or one religion. I do believe that if this current administration is genuine and sincere about equity, equality, and balance, it is something that they can strive for. We have more women who are competent across the country who can fill in certain roles. A lot of people have said that this current president has a track record of empowering people and being able to identify talent. I genuinely feel that between now and when it is time for him to make the formal announcement and declaration of ministers, commissioners, and people to hold office in this cabinet, people with disabilities, regardless of the ethnic background and tribalism, because that was something that plagued the nation during the entire campaign period, especially women. I don't believe that Nigeria cannot run or function if women are in charge. I think this current administration will set a great antecedent for itself if it does start off by giving more women adequate representation in public offices. I mean, as most of us know, we all know that women
Adekule, go on. I was struggling to hear you there. We'll come back to you, but I'd like you to share your expectation from this government. What is that one thing that you're expecting in the short term that this administration should deliver for you to believe that, yes, that renewed hope is definitely what we're going to see in the next 4 years?
One of the first and shortest thing, which I doubt if it's possible over time, is first and foremost to tackle drastically and reduce waste in governance. That is one. Secondly, the issue of insecurity. Nigeria has spent over 10 trillion since 2015. If they can tackle those insecurity with not just manpower, using tech and other AI aspects and reducing the death toll of people there and saving costs. Then thirdly, creating a kind of intervention fund to reduce the pool of unemployment, whereby making fund available to young people with single interest digits and a duration of maybe 5 years payment plan, and creating all the whole necessary to allow small businesses thrive. By doing so, we are taking people out of poverty.
So these short-term gains, you believe, will really send the right direction to Nigerians, that this is a government that is committed to creating jobs, reducing unemployment, and also raising people out of poverty. Over to you, Adekunle. What is, in the short term, what is that one thing or several things, like our guest here has said, that you're expecting this government to deliver if we are to all believe in this renewed hope?
I'd like to think that the government should primarily focus on segmenting the problem Nigeria has. We have a mammoth of problems in this nation, and if we decide to say we want to tackle everything as a whole, we wouldn't go anywhere. But the one thing that plagues us now is the issue of unemployment. There are so many things that need to be done in the country, and I think if the government is able to pay attention to that, I do not believe that the federal government does have the sole responsibility of identifying and solving every problem, which is why we have other tiers in government and then the delegates, so that those tiers can take it up. If, for example, within a local community now, if we're able to get the statistics of unemployment there and there are resources, there are jobs that need to be done within the community, it would make more sense if the people within that particular community are the people who are outsourced to fill the job. That way we've been able to close the unemployment gap, as well as underemployment. Something about the education system needs to be checked in almost immediately. We have a lot of farmers. This is me moving into the agricultural sector as well. We have a lot of farmers who have the skill, but they don't have the resources and the empowerment needed. The government needs to be able to fix into that as well. And then as well as healthcare, the living in Nigeria is difficult on its own. There are so many ways, but generally, on the short run, I think the government actually needs to segment all these issues individually and almost immediately putting plans in place to make sure all that is sorted out. But tackling the major issues such as subsidy, that's a long fight that it might take a while. But almost immediately, unemployment, inflation rate, the food and agricultural sector, health sector as well. Those are things that I think can easily be tackled by providing jobs for the Nigerians we have that have the skills to make it work, because the nation's wealth is with the people, and the federal government and Nigeria need to put more power in the human capital. We genuinely and almost immediately, as quickly as yesterday, need to empower the Nigerians that we have, because Nigerians are living in the country, which means they have something to offer. So we need to look inward to be able to solve our nation's problem.
Yes, to definitely stem that phenomenon of japa, there will be a need for increased investment in human capital development and making things more attractive so that our brightest minds don't continue to seek better fortunes off the shores of this country. Now, do you believe that Nigeria is fixable in 4 years? Is that a tall order? Can this administration deliver on bringing Nigeria on the path of greatness, or are some things just going to be left to time?
I won't agree some things will be left to time, but gradually the place of fixing the debt in infrastructure, the rotting system in the civil service, the low patronage and low morale of the citizen in governance, I think the process can start. And it's not going to be a 4 years process, but sincerity and genuinity of purpose can lay down the foundation over time and build a strong institutions and system that whoever comes after will be able to see a roadmap and go through it. Because Nigeria is battered from every angle, not just in terms of the infrastructure, human capital development, the healthcare system, and
so it's the priority to set a good foundation that can be built on. Very quickly, before we close the show, Adekunle, do you believe that Nigeria's problems can be fixed in 4 years, or is that too big or too tall a dream?
I think some problems can be solved within an allocated period of time. Nigeria as a whole, I'm not certain that we would ever run out of problems. But if we're able to identify some of the issues, and as I said, priority, once we're able to identify that, I think some of the problems can be tackled. Ghost workers, lack of morale within the civil service, enthusiasm of people believing in governance, people believing in the media as well. I think some of those are some things that can be tackled. Infrastructure, maybe within a couple of years, as long as it's not an elephant project. But Nigeria as a nation we would gradually need to build. We would gradually need to make sure things work, because nothing lasts forever. The more you fix something, the more other things would rot. So it's a continuous process.
Thank you very much, Adekunle Olopade, a media personality and reality star, for your contributions on Rubbin Minds. And thank you to you also, Ifeanyi Okoye, a journalist, for your contributions.
Thank you very much.